salesmen are legit matchmakers. It is 100% true. You're trying to take your customer, your prospect, and match them to the best quality of service or product you're offering. And once they get that, like, they could be a customer for life.
Thank you for joining us this week. This week's guest, Mary Harper, will be joining us again for a two-part series on sales techniques. In the first episode, we will discuss listening skills to understand what your customer needs, overcoming objections, and how to relate to your customer.
All right, Craig, you're in sales. I'm in sales. Several people who are going to listen to this, I'm sure, are in sales. And we have all encountered an experience to where you have a customer or prospect, maybe even a referral, and you're calling them, you texted them. You may even had a good outreach to where they answer you and you even talk to them, build a little bit of communication, but they're not answering your calls now. And they told you they were interested and it's been about 3 days and you're like, Karen, I know you told me to call you. So here I am again. Or, let's just say you're doing everything that you possibly can, yet you can't get not even the sale, you're just trying to get a meeting with them. And that is something that I kind of want to go over and discuss is how do we get to that point, or how do we get to closing that sale, or even just getting to a meeting and getting them to sit down with you.
There's nothing worse than getting interest from a customer. They're definitely interested in what you have to offer, whether it's your knowledge, your product, your service, whatever it is. They've gotten interest, which I think that's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is getting them to, finding the right person to get in front of that actually wants what you have to offer. And then they show that interest and then they ghost you.
Yeah. Exactly. It's trying to figure out, what did I do wrong, or what could I have done better? So I'm hoping that I can offer some advice for that today. And who knows what will come out of this since we're just winging it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But, for example, let's say you go into a TJ Maxx or, any store like that, and you get one of the workers come up to you and they're like, hi, can I help you? No, you immediately are like, no, when all they're doing is their job, and you're not rejecting them. You're just rejecting their offer. Well, here's what you have to understand is you're in that store for a reason, to buy something.
Right.
But you are sitting there objecting their offer to help. And we have to sit there and think about that happens to us on a daily basis is they want to buy. Okay. It's just, we have to figure out what is their motive to want to buy. And a lot of people have what's called, it's risks, does the risk outweigh the reward and things similar to that. And that's what I want to discuss is how do we get over those risks? So yeah, we really want to figure out, does the risk of the purchase outweigh the reward of ownership? So we need to figure out those risks so we can let them understand that there's so much reward in the ownership they can have through purchasing whatever it is you're trying to sell or offer them. For example, you are in insurance, correct?
Right.
Okay. So you do cold calling? How do you go about that? Is it referrals? You kind of just... What is it?
Typically, it would be cold calling. I personally do not because I'm not comfortable with it. It's not my comfort zone. It's not how I like to do business. Mm-hmm. However, everything that we do in some sense would be cold calling, whether it's an actual call or if it's a visit or if it's a text or if it's an email or some type of message. You're getting in front of somebody that you've not spoken to before. So it's cold.
Like a cold touch almost.
It's like a cold something.
Yeah.
It may not be a call, but it's definitely cold. They didn't necessarily come to you because people sometimes don't know that they need you. It's your job to give them that option.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time, I'm going to give you an example of somebody who sold me. And first of all, folks, the easiest people to sell are salesmen, point blank.
It's true.
I had saved up, I've saved up a couple $1,000s for something. Okay. And I was driving one day in my car and I received a phone call. It's unknown. And, if you're in the sales industry, you pick up the phone. You want business, you pick up the phone. So I pick up the phone and this gentleman answers and he's like, "Hey, Mary, this is, very enthusiastic. So pay attention to the little details I'm about to tell you, because this is what caught my attention is he was extremely enthusiastic but calm, not very too direct, but seemed very informative. And he was a financial advisor, and he had called me on the right day, right time, and caught me to where I could listen to him. And I'm the type of person I want to be listened to. So I try to give people a minute to talk so I can listen to them.
Sure.
And he says, have you ever thought about, your future with your finances and investments? And I was at that stage of where I was just starting to read books and audio tapes. And I'm like, I was just starting to read about that. And he goes, "Well, listen, what are you doing this week? Are you available at all to come into my office and let's talk?" And he was just so smooth with the way he was directing the conversation that he didn't make me feel pressured. He was just informative and asked me a logical question. Have you thought about your future? And the same with you with your insurance. Have you thought about if you get hurt or your family? You got to find that button with them on what it is going to catch their attention to want to listen to more and find out more information. And he caught my attention at that stage in my life of wanting to learn more about financing. And that's the key, folks, about staying consistent, because just because they say no to you now doesn't mean in 6 months when you should do your follow-up that at that time, now they're like, "You know what? I'm glad you reached out to me because I do not like my health insurance. You should have seen what they put on my bill last month."
Well, like you said, when you go into that store, the natural reflex of a human is to say, "No, thanks, I'm just looking." Right. I think that every salesperson listening to this, and all the ones that aren't, would agree with that. It's just a natural reflex we all have. You walk into a store, you get the salesperson that walks up to you because, again, it's their job. "Can I help you with anything?" "No, thanks, just looking." Right?
Yep.
You might have even had a question and you're still going to tell them, "No, thanks, just looking." But in 3 minutes, when you can't figure out where it is, "Sir, ma'am."
"Julie, where you at, ma'am? I need to come." Right. "Oh, now she's busy with somebody else." No. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's absolutely true.
So you just have to be available for when they do realize they really do need your help. And that's what you're there for. So don't go too far away.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So if you're reaching out to someone and it's your first time reaching out, you don't know what in the middle they're doing. Are they in the middle of work? Are they with their family? So they may seem aggravated or short with you at that moment. Don't give up on them. They're not saying no to you. They're saying no to what you were offering, but don't give up on them. You may have caught them at the wrong moment. That's why follow up and staying consistent is so key in being a salesman. And if you are not willing to take rejection or failure, you need to get out of sales. Absolutely. And it's okay to feel hurt. It's okay, but you got 5 minutes and get over it and move on to your next call, because if you're not doing it, your competition is, and you better believe they're going to get them. So it's just important to understand and remind yourself that if you get rejected, keep going, because in 6 months, they're going to want you. And also remember this. Let's say, Craig, because again, I'm going to keep going back to you because it's just easier that way, because I know that you're in insurance. So we'll just stick to that. Excuse me. Let's say you're like, you get a referral and you hear about your friend saying, "You know what? I overheard my girlfriend talking about how she just went and her copay was $40 more than what she expected and everything like that." What do you do to go about that? Do you do a little research on the reason I'm asking you this question is because it's going to lead into what I have to say next. Are you able to find out information? Like if they gave you my name and said, "My friend Mary Harper, her insurance is horrible." Are you able to look up what insurance I have without me telling you?
No.
Okay. All right. So that might be a little bit harder of an example. So let me switch this.
But to expand on that, I may not know the specific plan they have, but if I'm a good salesperson and I think one of the biggest points of being a good salesperson, not just a salesperson, is to know your competitors.
Yes.
You have to know what else is out there. So I may not know what plan that specific person has.
But you're going to be prepared.
But I know what plans are out there, and I know what questions to ask her to find out.
Okay.
So I don't need to know the name of the plan. I don't need to know the name of the company. There's just like 2 or 3 questions I can ask to find out what exactly it is or what type of plan.
So I love that. So you are prepared with your competitors already. So if she comes at you with a question, you're already hey, I have it sitting in front of me. And that to me is key. You want to be prepared. You want to have you want to be educated so that they feel confident in you when you're speaking and when you're giving them the information. But let me back up because I'm going to give you a different example of where I was leading with this, but that is phenomenal that you do that. Let me give you I was actually talking about this to you earlier about when I was auditioning to be a spokesperson. So whenever I was about probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, folks, I was locally trying to get a spokesperson job at a car dealership. It was a new car dealership here in town. And I already had prior experience doing it for a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this risk. And I want this. I want to be the face. I want to, show them I can do this. So what did I do? I researched that dealership. Okay. Not only did I research the dealership, I researched who are the owners. Is there more than one owner? Is there going to be more than one decision maker during this? Because you don't want to get to the table and then them go, yeah, I got to call up so-and-so and discuss this. Now you're just like, but if you did your research, you would know that there's going to be more than one person to approve this.
Right.
So moving forward, I researched everything about this place down to where I knew his family's name, his children's name, his dog Toto's name. Okay. Because I wanted him to know I was serious. Well, I also found out that he loved eating at a certain breakfast place in the morning. So what did I do? I went there every single morning until I saw him walk through those doors. I was a nervous wreck as I have never done this before, but as what we're doing now is talking about it, that's what I did is I listened to it on tapes, read about it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I went up to him and I said, hey, Mr. So-and-so, my name is Mary Harper and I'm here for the interview. I'm here to, and he looked at me like I was nuts. He was like, what is this girl doing? I'm just trying to get my latte and move out. And he's like, what interview? I don't do interviews here. And I said, the interview, sir, to be the next spokesperson at your new dealership or your new dealership. And he died laughing. And he was just taken back at the fact that I did that. Now, did I get the job? No, I did not. But he told me no. But you know what I did? The next day. Now, just remember, folks, I just got denied. I spent a couple days waiting for this man, went up to him, just took a risk, and he denied me. Okay. So I'm like, okay, that's all right. He's not denying me. He's denying what I'm offering. Caught him off guard. He just wanted a coffee. So the next day I went to the dealership and I showed up there and I said, hey, it's me again. He's like, what are you doing here? I said, sir, I told you I'm here for the interview. I want to be the next spokesperson. Let's just sit down and talk about it. Well, he did. He sat down with me for a few minutes to discuss. Now I'm going to tell you what he said to me. He gave me his objections. And one of his objections where, it's just not in our financial budget at this time. And, our funds are tied up and there's just nothing we can do. And it crushed me. Like it really did. Cause I'm like, God, here I am again. So I said, you know what? I said, I completely understand, sir. I said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not lying to you. And I walked out. And I just wish at that time, I had a little bit more education on how to overcome the objections.
And I think that's key, though. Anybody who's in sales, if you've done it for any amount of time, depending upon what industry you're in or what company you're with, it doesn't take long to know what the objection is going to be, right? If you do cold calls, I don't care what business you're in. If you do a cold call, 99.9% of the time, your response on the other end of the line is going to be no thanks, click.
If you even get a no thanks, you're the click. Yeah.
Or it's going to be, no thanks, I'm not interested. If you know what the objection is going to be before you make the call, be prepared for that objection.
Yes, exactly what you just said. Be prepared. Try your best. And the reason I told that story is because it was a learning experience for me. It really was. I stepped out of my comfort zone. I kept getting rejected and it made me have to look back and analyze on what I could have done better. Now, one of the biggest keys is to be prepared with your objections. So if you probably already have heard, well, I'm already good with who I have as a provider.
Right.
That word, I'm satisfied. Really? I want to be more than satisfied. I want to be ecstatic. I want to tell everyone about my health insurance provider. And that's how it should be. And if you have these objections, something that you could do to find their yes button is to, if you don't know this, ask questions. Mm-hmm. Asking questions not only puts you in charge, but it allows you to get more information. And don't feel, you get a pen and paper out, write it for your own memory so that if they continue to say no when you do your follow-up, you already know what their previous objections were. So now you've had time to work on them.
Yeah, you need to find out what their pain points are. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, you're just regurgitating information and now you're trying to sell them. And they feel that.
Yes.
But if you're asking questions, you find out what they need, and then you use your bullet points or whatever the good aspects of your service or goods is to fit those pain points, not just randomly telling them good things about your product. You don't know if they care about that or not.
They don't care about your product. They care about what's good for them.
Yeah. How does it work for me? Mm-hmm. What's it do for me?
Exactly. So you had just brought up something that was great. And it just reminded me that when you are about to call someone or meet them for lunch, you need to remember something, that yes, you are out to you need a paycheck. We all need to keep a roof over our head. But at the end of the day, your interest better be into that prospect, referral, customer. You want the best for them. You are reaching out to them to help them, not sell them. And you have to understand the difference. And if you don't, they will. And they will tell if you are trying to get a sale or if you genuinely are trying to help them get to a better place.
People don't want to be sold.
But they love to buy.
Yeah. And, income is the outcome, not the objective.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into the call or into the visit, into that sales call with your paycheck in mind, I guarantee you're going to lose. You're going to lose because it shines through in the words you use, the tone you use, that you're desperate. And it's really hard to do when you first get into sales, right? Because we need a paycheck. I got bills to pay. We all have bills to pay. But if you go into that call or that visit with your absolute goal is to find out what they need and see how you can satisfy that need, you're helping them. Once you help them, they're going to buy. They're not getting sold. And then when they buy, that's when you get your paycheck. So go into it trying to help, not trying to make a buck.
I have a great example for you. So I also do real estate for all of you that are listening. And I had got a referral. It was a wonderful family. And they were qualified up to a certain amount. And we had looked at every home in that amount in our area. And there was nothing. And they were getting very discouraged. And they had to get out of their rental. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, what can I do? And when you're in sales, you have to think outside the box. Think differently. That is key. Okay, so remember that. You want to really think differently. So I went on and went to like a for sale by owner site. And because they're not necessarily on Zillow, Realtor.com, or our MLS, they're not on there, but they're also trying to sell a house. And who knows, there could be several in that price range. So guess what? I found 3 for sale by owner homes that were stunning in their price range. I sent them to my buyers and said, do any of these appeal to your heart? One stood out to them. So I got a hold of the person who was selling it, the homeowner. And I said, hello. And you have to understand, when you're trying to sell a house on your own, you're getting blown up every day by realtors trying to make a sale.
Right.
And so when I called her, I already knew that she was going to think I'm trying to sell her house. So when I called her, I was like, hey, miss, her name was on file there. I said, before you say anything, I go, yes, I'm a realtor. Yes, I'm trying to sell your home. No, I don't want to be your listing agent. I have buyers for you. And this is what I said to her. I said, I do not care about my commission. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to discuss it. I just want to know, are you available tomorrow for me to show this house? And she responded back, absolutely. And anyways, so fast forward. Now, a lot of you are probably like, what in the world is this girl thinking? She's about to show a house And her career is commission. And the one thing that she just said is don't worry about the commission. And the reason why is why? Why do you think I said that?
It builds trust with them. Now you're not being selfish.
Right. And also, exactly.
They're doing it for them.
Yes. Yeah. And I also kept in the back of my mind, they had a rental they had to get out of. So if I had to sacrifice my commission at the end of the day, I helped that family.
Right.
So fast forward, we go to look at the house. They loved it. So now they're like, we want to offer. So now this is where I come into play. And I'm like, all right. So I go to the homeowner and I say to her, what they want to offer. And I go, now let's talk about it. I go, but I need you to understand, I don't have a number in my head. You want to sell a house. They want to buy your house. Let's make a deal. So she ended up asking one of her friends who's a realtor what they would want if they were in my shoes, because that's what I suggested for her to do to make an honest answer. And at the end of the day, they bought that house. No, I did not get the commission amount I would have had if it was listed on the market. But folks, listen to this. Listen to this, Craig. I got 3 referrals out of that deal. I did not make the whole commission. I made a small portion of the commission, but the gratitude that I got of that family finding their home, first home buyers, and they sent me 3 referrals because of their experience. All 3 of those referrals bought houses.
It sets a domino effect in motion, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know, not everyone. I had several other realtors tell me I was crazy. They're like, why are you doing that? You know why? And this is what everyone needs to understand is don't be like everyone else. You know, yes, look at those that maybe are in your office or, you know, in your industry that are successful. Listen to them, watch what they do, analyze them, but make it your own and follow your heart and do what's right. And do not follow those dollar signs, because at the end of the day, when you appeal to their heart and you do what's right, it's going to come back to you.
It does.
In three folds is what they call it.
And nothing is easier than a referral sale.
Oh, and they're just the best.
You were referred for a reason. And usually you're referred to people who are friends or family of the person that's referring them to you. So they already trust you. You don't have to build that trust. And the hardest thing to do in sales, I think you would agree, is building trust, right? And you only have a very small amount of time to do that in most cases.
Yes.
And now that trust is already there because, hey, you know, my mom said you're the best. So that's why I'm calling you. Well, yes. Half the job's already done.
And that's
just don't let them down with that, of course.
Oh, yeah. Because not only that, you know, if you're getting a referral, it represents you and your business, but the person that just referred you, don't want to make them look bad. Right. Like, I just put my neck out of line for you and I'm never going to send anyone to you again. And that could have been your pipeline of that person. So it's important to always be on top of your referrals and your sphere of influence. So something else, Greg, you had mentioned about trust. Something that you can do, at least for me, what I've realized is humor. If you have a sense of humor, you will break down those walls of whomever you're on the phone with immediately. Like, it just lets down a guard. Like, whenever I call people, I'll walk around with a microphone. I swear I almost brought it today. I have a microphone and I'll go up to folks and I'll be like, hello, sir. Like, I'm a news reporter. Do you need to buy a house? And they just look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, do you need to sell a house? And it's just a way for me to break down their guard or their, you know what they usually say? They'll either be like, no, you're nuts. Or they'll be like, I'm not, but my sister-in-law is. And they just, once they laugh, their guard goes down a little bit and they like you. And once somebody likes you, they'll start trusting you. And that is a great bond to have because you never know where it's going to go. So I just wanted to make sure I threw in there that a little bit of humor shows sincerity and just that you're human and you're not a robot and you're not all sales. Don't be too salesy.
And even when you do something like I do in health insurance is not a funny subject, right? And it's hard to make jokes about health or why you might need health insurance. But you're right. When you take a real calm and just a casual approach with people, health insurance, life insurance. I don't know too many people that just wake up in the morning like, you know what? I'm hoping, gosh, I really hope somebody calls me today to talk about health insurance.
Insurance agent calls me today.
It just doesn't happen. So when you do get them on the phone, don't take yourself too seriously.
Exactly.
And like you said, if you can, humor works with just about everything.
If you can make them laugh, you can make them buy.
Sure.
And that is, it may not be the first time. Right. Exactly. It may not be the first time you're on the call, but they'll remember that. And when you get off the phone, be like, man, he was funny. She was funny. And they'll remember that the next time you call, and it won't be that, she's calling again. No, you want it to be like, she's calling again. Here we go. Let's do this.
Hey, I was looking for a good time on the phone. Let's do this.
Exactly. And even if it takes a while, you want to build that rapport. And that way you're like, again, you're building that relationship, because even though they may not need your services or your product that you're trying to sell, they may know someone who does.
So let me ask you this. When we've been talking a lot about, getting into that conversation, introducing yourself, breaking the ice with humor, doing all those things to get that conversation, build their trust, and, find out what their needs are. Mm-hmm. The ultimate goal, though, is the sale.
Yes,
right?
It is.
Your goal, look, it's great talking to all these people, and you do get to meet a lot of people, which is so fun. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the best parts about my job.
I agree.
Is I get to talk to so many people from around the country. I get to hear about their lives, and it gets really intimate when you're in health insurance, right? You hear about all the good as well as a lot of bad.
Yeah.
Maybe they're looking for health insurance because they had a friend pass away 2 years ago, and it made them really think about where they're at. But the ultimate goal is to help them.
Yes.
And obviously,
and make a sale.
And make
course.
a sale.
But
so how do you lead into that without sounding like a salesperson? How do you ask for the sale?
That is a great question. So the first thing you want to do, and now I'll give you an example as if this was the first time that you're meeting with them, whether it's over the phone or in person, and you don't want to dive right into it. You do not want to dive right into what you're trying to offer them. You want to talk to them a little bit and say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Don't talk about you. Talk about them. Learn about them. Nobody cares about you. Everybody likes to talk about themselves.
Exactly.
So you wanna just get to know them a little bit. Kind of when you and I first started doing podcasts, we just sat down for a little while and just started talking to each other, breaking down your guard a little bit,
right.
And then you get a little more comfortable. And so you'll know the right moment when you are in front of your prospect, your customer. You'll know. But you want to enter the conversation very just naturally, as if you're sitting with your friend. Don't be salesy, be calm, be neutral, have your humor. Don't forget your humor. Keep a smile on your face, have good energy. They read that. Mm-hmm. And ask them their favorite questions. Be like, so what do you like to do? Do you like to hike? You want to find something that you have in common to, again, build that relationship, build that trust. And when you'll know the right moment to start diving in. So you'll be like, yeah, I remember when I went, have you ever gone cliff diving, and start talking about that? Be like, yeah, I did. And this is actually a great topic to talk about. I broke my ankle out there. And if it wasn't for me having the insurance policy that I had, I don't know what I would have done. I really don't. And you can say, so, I'm really glad that you got to meet with me today, Sharon, because I want to talk to you about that. And you told me that you do like to hike. You told me you do like to do that stuff. And you said you had kids. How many kids do you have? What are their names? You see, I kind of slowly brought it in there, but then I brought it back to getting to know more about her. And you got to find her. She's going to have objectives. And there's always a risk when you're going to buy something. Like, well, after I buy it, are they going to be there after the sale? Are they going to answer my phone call? Are they just out to, get my money? So you want to make sure that they know you are there for them.
And that small talk, we all hear about small talk, right? Mm-hmm. Getting people comfortable. And small talk is, I think, one of the biggest keys in sales and breaking them, getting them open up to you.
I agree.
But I also feel that the small talk has to somehow relate to why you actually are in that conversation with them.
And they may not know that, but you need to
Exactly. And so, it's not always just about the weather. Right?
Okay, don't talk about weather. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about, you want to stay away from certain subjects like that. It's a nice day out. Do not talk about that.
Because then it's kind of obvious what you're doing, right?
Yes, it is so obvious. Just be genuine, be real, be yourself. Do not fake it to make it. Like, I'm loud, I'm goofy.
Megaphone Mary.
I know. It's people turn imagine an invisible knob right now, folks. They'll turn it to the left, turn it down a notch. But And that's that. I use that to my advantage. I use that when I talk. I go, listen, and especially with older folks, I'll be like, I know you can hear me, Carol. I know you can. Turn that hearing aid up. So I use my loudness to as an advantage instead of being self-conscious about it. So if you are self-conscious about something, just use it as a way to make fun of yourself. If you're bald, you can just use jokes with that and stuff. Like, it's just a great way. You got to find out what works to make them laugh. But don't ever talk about somebody else or anything. But that's just a great example I wanted to throw in there that I do with myself, is being loud. And it kind of just, it helps me not be self-conscious, and it's a way to make them laugh. And that's key.
I always try to find something that I have in common with them. You know, being former military.
That's a great one.
That is a great one, because anybody out there who's listening to this, if you're former military, you know there's a bond. We don't know each other. We've never met. But that's something that you have in common that's very strong.
And they already trust you over somebody that would call that wasn't.
Exactly, because, hey, this guy knows me. Or, you know, my background in, you know, I used to work for a union doing sheet metal work, heating, air conditioning. You know, I was in management for 17 years. So I can relate to a lot of different people. And that's very useful to have. Not all of us can do that, of course. But when you can, use that, because you want to be able to adapt to who you're talking to, and they need to understand that you understand them and their situation and why. You're not just trying to solve a problem that, hey, how would you know? You know, but if you can relate to it, say, hey, I've been there. You know, when I was X back then, these are the same problems that I had. Let me tell you how this can fix those types of problems.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%, because people don't like to be judged. You know, they don't want to be judged. So like you said, if you can put aside your opinions and what you think and put yourself into whom you're trying to sell to or talk to, put yourself in their shoes. And when they're speaking, listen. And because the reason I say listen is when they're speaking, as you're asking questions, the hot point of what's going to sell them is going to come out. So it's very important for you to not in your back of your head think, sale. It's okay. Well, she said this and she said this. And then eventually you're going to find that buying power, or that's, you know, what's going to get them there. And that's the sale. That's the
sale
closing.
Is not in what you're saying. It's what they're saying.
Right. It's not
they
about
sell
you.
themselves. If you listen, they sell themselves, because you, again, like we said at the beginning, you know, if you ask the right questions, and like you said, people like to talk about themselves. It's the same thing as going on a date. You know, when my son was growing up, I told him, hey, you know, when you go on a date with a girl, let her talk 90% of the time that you're out there, because the more she talks, the more she's going to like you. And it's the same thing in sales. People like to talk about themselves, and that's great because it makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel like you're listening, and you should be. You should be listening, because like you just said, everything that you need to know is going to be in what they're saying. Like, one of the first things that I open up with is, you know, tell me a little bit about your current situation. What do you got going on right now with health coverage?
I love that.
It's so open-ended. They're going to tell you what they have, how much they're paying, you know, what they like and don't like. And typically it's going to be what they don't like.
I like how you
And now you know how, you know, what you have can fill in those voids.
I really like that a lot, because you don't want to start it like, I think we even mentioned it earlier. Are you satisfied with your current carrier? Yeah, I am. Thanks. You don't.
Can I help you with anything? No, I'm just looking.
That's why questions are so important and how you ask them. So take your time on it, research it, listen to how other people word things, and make it your own. But that's why asking questions is very important, because let's say your first question is not the right one, but if you keep asking, you're going to finally get to one that catches their attention, and you're going to get the answer out of it.
Be sure to join us next week for the second half of my conversation with Mary Harper, where we will continue where we left off. Next week's episode will discuss the benefits of customer testimonials, using your voice to win the sale, and your true purpose as a salesperson.